I was just watching the video of Alejandro Morales, and I've got to say that as far as children of illegal immigrants go, I agree that you cannot punish the kids. I like what Mark Zuckerberg said. He said, let's see, but our broken immigration system blocks him because he is undocumented. And he says, we must fix this. And of course, like I said, and I've been saying for a long time, you can't punish the children. They didn't do anything, and my own great-granddad came here illegally. He didn't have a choice. It wasn't like he just said, oh, I'm going to come over here and, lie on my naturalization papers and all that. He didn't choose to do what, in his case, he didn't choose to do what Julian and Alexandria did. And to, I guess, vindicate her, or maybe, I don't know, because she didn't exactly tell the truth either by the time she was naturalized or by the time that her husband was deceased. I don't know who to vindicate there, but someone before 1930 was telling the truth about great-great-grandma. By the way, sorry, my ADD, I'm just looking at the stuff on Twitter and I'm being a little distracted. But anyway, it's like when you follow the more than one thing at a time, obviously, and trying to see if there's anything else I can comment on today, but I think one of the main issues, especially that we all need to focus on, I think, is certainly the idea that, suddenly we're going to punish the kids for what the parents did, and what kind of idea is that? We're going to say, like, some people are even, who is it? That stupid Representative Stephen King that we give attention. And the question is, why do we give him attention? Why do we validate people who are saying, oh, these kids are hauling cantaloupes and what have you, and, or, they're hauling marijuana and they've got cantaloupe-sized calves or whatever. It's so... First of all, I bet you that Stephen King, or Steve King, as he calls himself, would not be saying that these kids are hauling marijuana and have calves the size of cantaloupes if the kids were white Anglo-Saxon immigrants, whether they be Irish. Well, the Irish are really Celtic, but by the same token, it's so. If they were, for lack of a better term, Gaelic or Nordic, or I just don't think he'd be saying that. But in terms of Hispanics, in terms of Jews, obviously, in terms of whoever else, Steve King is fine with saying, let's get the illegal immigrants out of here. Let's get our kids out of here, and it's just not right. And back in the old days too, and they had limited immigration in 1924, I believe it was. Let me look up the exact act while I'm here. I believe it was called the Immigration Act of 1924, but okay, so let me see. I'm trying to think if there was a more specific name for it. Okay, yeah. The Immigration Act or Johnson-Reed Act. So there were two names for it. And by that time, thank God, great-granddad was naturalized and he had immigrated and whatever, but even if he had been caught by that time and they found out that he had his situation that his parents lied on their naturalization papers and what have you, he would have been in big trouble, and the die was already cast. The table was already set. Immigrants who weren't white Anglo-Saxons or other, for lack of a better term, other accepted kinds of whites were not going to be led in this country. And again, like I said, it's just not fair to punish the kids because they didn't choose to be, in today's society, they didn't choose to be Hispanic or Asian or what have you. And in the days of my great-granddad, they didn't choose to be Jews or Syrians or other people who are coming over then. And to punish, like I said, to punish the kids for what the parents did is just wrong, and it's unbiblical. I didn't say that before, but it is. And one of the verses I always cite is Ezekiel 1:5-6. 18, 1-5 I was originally going to say. But I'm going to expand the verse a little bit to Ezekiel 18, 1 to... Okay, I'm just gonna keep it to Ezekiel 18, 1-4 then. The word of the Lord came to me again, saying, What do you mean when you use this proverb concerning the land of Israel, saying, The fathers have eaten sour grapes, and the children's teeth are set on edge? As I live, says the Lord God, you shall no longer use this proverb in Israel. Behold, all souls are mine. The soul of the Father as well as the soul of the Son is mine. The soul who sins shall die. And in terms of the 14th Amendment, too, there was a long debate over it, but by 1868, everybody was saying, okay, if you're born here, regardless of whether you're born illegal immigrants or illegal immigrants or whoever, you're a United States citizen. And in terms of the Constitution, it even says in clear, undeniable, indisputable language that, you know, if you're born here, you're born here, and what are you going to be able to do about it? And the language specifically, so I'm going to pull it up here so no one has any questions about what it says. 14, let me go here, 14th Amendment. And I'm going to have to go all the way down, but that's okay. Okay, oh, I should have typed in a number 14. Anyway, it says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of laws. And it goes on, but Article 5 says, the Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. So first of all, the language says all persons, not all persons born of legal immigrants or naturalized citizens. It says all persons. And what Steve King is doing and what Jan Brewer was saying about doing there for a while, obviously just flies in the face of the Constitution, and to pass any law saying, okay, we need to kick the anchor babies out, or we need to, even though the Dreamers weren't here, obviously, in terms of like the Dreamers weren't born here, but I guess you could apply the same kind of thing. Well, for the kids born here, obviously to pass a law saying let's kick the anchor babies out is certainly unconstitutional. And as far as the Dreamers, first of all, you can't punish the kids for what the parents did. Again, that's, to punish the kids for what the parents did is totally unbiblical. And then as far as, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction equal protection laws. So really you could apply, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty. So these Dreamers don't even get due process. They're told, okay, your parents came here illegally, well, we're going to kick you out. And if it were up to the Jan Brewers and the Steve Kings and whoever else, obviously they don't care right now about what the 14th Amendment already says. And they obviously don't care about the Bible, or else they wouldn't be punishing the kids for what the parents did. And what is ex post facto going to mean to them if they do pass this law about kicking the, for lack of a better term, kicking the anchor babies and the Dreamers out? It's going to be like, oh, you know what, we don't give a crap about ex post facto. We're just going to, hey, kick you out because, hey, your great-granddad came here illegally, your whoever came here illegally, and if Steve King and Jan Brewer and their types get their way, well, I wouldn't even be able to make Alia, so that option, unfortunately, is not there for me. And unfortunately, because of what great-granddad and the rest of them did, not great-granddad, my bad, what his parents did, I would technically be back in Poland. And the thing with Alejandro Morales, he said, hey, this is the only country I've ever known. Those were his exact words. He said, this is the only country I've ever known. Or maybe he said the United States is the only country I've ever known. You get the point. I'm not the most perfect quoter or what have you, but it's the same thing with me. The United States is seriously the only country I've ever known. And I've never been west of Tennessee, never south of Florida, never north of New York, and quite frankly, Maryland is where I spent most of my life. And so not only is the United States the only country I've known, Maryland is pretty much the only state that I've known, and God forbid you ever get the type like Jan Brewer and Steve King in Maryland, because if they had their way, I'd be in Poland, frankly. I've never known Lipsk, I've never known Warszawa, I've never known any of those places. Like I said, I've never even been outside the United States, and not really Maryland at all, because most of the times I spend in other states were just in specific parts, and, for very specific reasons, and, well, there you go. And by the way, forgive the distracting motions, it's just I thought I saw someone outside my window there, and, also, like I said before, my ADD gets to me, not to mention, my irritable bowel syndrome, too. And, speaking of that, if the Jan Brewer types and the Steve King types and the other types had their way, and I just got kicked out, and they just arbitrarily said, oh, your great-granddad came here illegally, and his siblings were all born anchor babies, and we're gonna kick you all out. I could just get arbitrarily thrown out with no time to explain anything, with no time to say, hey, that's not fair, with no time to even, get my medication, for example. Now, granted, I'm not taking meds for IBS and all that, but I am taking meds for other stuff, and you can imagine my IBS will be exacerbated to the point where, if they ever kick me out, and God forbid, like I said, that the Stephen King and the Jan Brewer types would ever get their way, because I would literally pee myself because I'd be so scared. And, I don't know if, anyone, hopefully people will be compassionate enough not to want anyone to, have any medical conditions exacerbated. For example, like even, let's say, another illegal immigrant is a kid, he comes over here, he has some kind of, let's say he doesn't have irritable bowel syndrome like I do, but let's say he has asthma instead. One day the feds come in, they say, oh, you're an illegal immigrant kid, you're a dreamer, your parents came here illegally, we're just going to kick you out. His asthma might be exacerbated, and he's going to die, and we're just supposed to sit there saying, oh, the feds picked him up, and his asthma got exacerbated, and he died, but hey, his parents came here illegally, so we had to kick him out and make his asthma worse, and scare him, when really, he didn't do anything. So, we're gonna be compassionless, heartless, ruthless, and we're gonna really mess up people's lives, and we're gonna say, hey, we don't care about you as a person, we don't care about what your needs are, we don't care about whatever. We're gonna say to you, screw you, your parents came here illegally, your siblings were all born anchor babies, or maybe you were even born an anchor baby, but we're still going to kick you out, and we're not even going to get to give you time to get what you need, and it's going to get crazy. And then when people, because I know a lot of people say, oh, in terms of the raids and the holdups and the deportations, a lot of that stuff is exaggerated. A lot of it isn't, and you're just going to, drag out hordes of people, and that reminds me of, and I'm not saying that Geraldo Rivera was right in the case of, what was his name? I forget, I think it was Jose Ramos or something like that. I'm not saying that he was right in the Ramos case, but when it does come to, for lack of a better term, when it comes to anchor babies and dreamer kids, there suddenly becomes that real fear, as I said, if the Jan Brewer types and the Steve King types get their way, it's going to be, like I said, Geraldo was not right about the Ramos case, but in the case of anchor babies and dreamer kids, the dread of, I'm going to take you outside and do something to you, literally does apply. Because like I said, these kids, it's like, we don't care that your parents came here, illegally and that you didn't do anything. We're just going to drag you out and throw you back to Poland or back to Mexico or back to wherever, and you never even known those countries a day in your life. And as I said, as the descendant of illegal immigrants, I'm just supposed to sit there and say, hey, yeah, that's okay. Let's get the anchor babies out. Let's get the dreamer kids out. Let's get the whoever else out. Yeah, because their parents did wrong. And another argument, too, that I hear is that, well, you don't want to separate these kids from their parents. And I'm like, maybe if great-granddad had been separated from his parents, because they, for lack of a better term, my IBS is exacerbating here. I hate this. Perfect timing. Anyway, so, you had the, and this is where I could get into trouble with a lot of people. That's probably why my IBS exacerbates too, because whenever I get stressed out and whatever. Anyway, so, and that's where my ADD goes off too. And people gotta love this because they're going, oh, please, get to your point. Well, okay, I have some very real human moments here, and believe me, I think this is a real human moment. And I know a lot of people are going to get mad at me, but speaking of being human, I almost think that you forget that you are human if you don't agree with this. You should really consider that perhaps we ought to be taking away these kids from their parents. And people say, well, you can't separate the kids from parents. Well, excuse me, if these parents brought their kids across the border illegally, then there's good reason to think, hey, these kids were trafficked across the border by parents who didn't give a crap about their lives. And so maybe these kids need to be put up in homes of legal immigrants and of naturalized citizens and of citizens who were born here and who pretty much, done the right thing all their lives and just did things the right way either way. And I could give you a real example in my life, and I've given this example several times on Twitter and other places. My cousins adopted a little boy from Guatemala, and the little boy was born in Guatemala, and his mom, his biological mom, could have said, hey, I'm going to cross the border illegally from Guatemala to Mexico to the United States or wherever else, or maybe I'm going to go across the Gulf of Mexico and do whatever. And, she decided, hey, I'm not gonna leave Guatemala and cross the border illegally and do anything to get me and my kid in trouble. I'm gonna do the right thing and give this kid up to people who clearly want to adopt children, want to give them a better life. And she decided, hey, in order to make life better for my kid, I'm just gonna put him up for adoption. And as far as I know, at least, when a kid is adopted by a United States citizen, they are United States citizens. And so if you really want these kids to become United States citizens, put them up for adoption instead of trying to cross the border illegally. And because I know there's got to be people hearing this or watching this who are thinking, maybe I ought to, since everyone's doing it anyway, I ought to come to the United States illegally. Well, take a lesson from my cousin's biological mother, and then on the flip side, take a lesson from my great-great-grandparents, compare and see who made life better for the kid by doing the right thing. And, don't put your kids in a situation where they could possibly, unfortunately, not only because of you, but because the types like Jan Brewer and Steve King are jerks anyway for wanting to punish kids, Don't put them in a situation where you could have them put at the hands of the Jan Brewer types and the Steve King types who really do not care about the children and who want to fulfill their own agendas. And in the case of, and I do believe that Jan Brewer, as I recall, she did have a bit of a racist agenda behind it as well. I know that Steve King certainly did, because he was talking about these kids, oh, they're hauling marijuana and they had the calves the size of cantaloupes. But that was not my great-granddad. He wasn't on a ship bringing over drugs. He was a little 3-year-old child. Actually, he was 3 years old. He was getting ready to turn 4 that year. And as far as these kids were, Alejandro Morales, was he at 7 months old hauling drugs across the border? I don't even think a 7-year-old could really even begin to comprehend what 7-year-old, 7-month-old. But there you go, whether kid's 7 or 7 months or what have you, they're just not going to comprehend, hey, I'm going to be hauling marijuana in this. They're not even thinking about that. They're thinking, this makes me mad too, because, when you say stupid things, like Jan Brewer and, Steve King say, and, a lot of people, remember, there are people out there with health conditions who can't handle the stupidity and the foolishness of some of what people say. And do you really want to kill people by a stupid statement that you made when you opened your mouth before you really thought? And like I said too, when you're dragging some of these kids out and their parents are coming to this country, maybe to give their kids a better life, even if they're doing it wrong-headedly, do you really want to exacerbate the kid's asthma or the kid's heart condition or the kid's whatever? Because maybe even these parents cross the border from Canada illegally because their health system is so messed up, and they're thinking, we can't really get an operation in Canada because of our socialized health system, and this whole immigration process in the U.S. is messed up. We got to hurry and get in there and get our kid a heart surgery or get our kid whatever kind of surgery. You really want to be, just think about the kids here.